Welcome to the Real Estate Rundown. Today we're going to kick it off by sharing some real estate horror stories. There it goes.
You are now entering the Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah. Well, we've got the stories for you today. I'll kick it off. And this is a horror story about wanting to buy a house and kind of being stuck. And it's actually from a Reddit post. And it says, WTF is wrong with our parents. My wife and I have spent almost 2 decades of leveling up in jobs and careers and are now in our late 30s with 2 small children in a high cost of living state. We scraped and suffered, and basically our credit has suffered. I'm personally $20,000 in credit card debt, and I'm slowly working that down. Our kids attend daycare that bleed our savings dry. Typical millennial shit. Last week, I came across my father-in-law's account summary, $10 million plus. Later that week, I mentioned I saw that to my own dad, and he said, well, he's doing just a little bit better than me then. Literally, what the F? I would give my last dollar to my son to make sure he was more comfortable, to make sure he didn't suffer debt or bad credit as long as he was working. Here, our own effing parents sitting on piles of gold, watching us navigate a whole new level of effed up economics and shopping for discounts and raising our kids in subpar school districts for effing what? And we can't even buy a house. This is like,
sounds like my parents.
This is like the real estate horror story of wanting to buy, can't buy, parents have a bunch of money, not passing it down yet. This is literally it gone
is earned,
viral.
Not given.
Well, a lot of parents won't even give. I mean, they're not gonna give their wealth to their kids because they feel like it would ruin them.
Squandered, right?
Yeah. I mean, and like, I don't know. I guess you be careful with that. What you say on stuff like this. It feels like there's like a lot of entitlement there.
Yeah, I know.
But I guess
lightly,
you don't know what they mean by been leveling up on the jobs and stuff. But, I mean, obviously they haven't been leveling up enough because they're struggling and they have $20,000 in debt. Why do they have $20,000 in debt?
Okay.
Like
on the
you're
other
living
hand,
behind your means. Then.
On the other hand, though, like if the parents are passing down this wealth, and why not help their kids out now? And put them in a better position, put them in a better neighborhood and better schools and in a better path.
My biggest takeaway is I feel like, part of one of the best things a parents can do is give you the path of how and how you execute. So case in point, you got $10 million. How did you generate it? Right? Why don't you work with them on some strategies to diversify your assets, to diversify money. Money makes money, right? And that type of skill set mindset, to me, it needs to be passed down upon, right? Giving people something doesn't, right? It's like the old adage from the Bible. Give a person a fish they eat for a day, teach them how to fish they eat for a lifetime. Mm-hmm. To me, it's the same type of experience. So I'd be mad at that. Yo, father-in-law, how'd you create all this? Well, you've seen us grinding on, pushing on. What have we not done that you don't want to bestow your wealth of knowledge on me so I can eat from this same fruit tree?
Well, my guess is if they're in their 30s, then this father has to be probably in their late 60s.
Yeah.
70s. No, he's probably 60s, 60-ish. So, I mean, that's 40 years of saving capital and investing. And so if you have $10 million, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's $10 million in cash. It's probably have $10 million in, what do you say, account summary of probably stocks and bonds and investments. So if you liquidate those, you pay high taxes. So especially if you're not retirement age yet. So, you're going to liquidate them and pay a big tax bill, and just to give your son or daughter some
make
cash.
life a little easier.
A down payment for a home.
Well,
those are your grandkids, though. Like I look at it. Okay, so I don't have grandkids yet, but I can imagine I'm going to be very pro making sure they're in a good neighborhood and very pro making sure they're in good
But that doesn't
schools.
say they're not in a good neighborhood.
Yeah, it does. Well, it says down at the bottom. Yeah, it does.
Oh, it does.
Yes, subpar school districts, raising our children in subpar school districts. And I don't know what state they're in, but they say they're in a high cost of living state. You guys are heartless, by the way.
Well, one thing I'm not heartless on is the childcare thing, right? I do empathize with that one. These childcare bills are out of hand, man.
Well,
$300 a week to send your kid to childcare is just preposterous.
That actually sounds inexpensive. $300 a week.
I just threw out a random
feel like
number.
It's way more than that.
No, it's about three. I think depending
expensive.
on where you go, it's $200 to $400. But even $400 a week, that's $1,600 a month to send your kid.
Yeah.
For somebody that they're paying probably $20 an hour.
Yeah, I think that
And they're watching 12 of them.
I would say though, something he points out is
Or
that the parents are sitting there, sitting on their piles of gold.
Of gold?
Watching
so they have
us.
gold? I think that's not.
Well,
account summary.
watching us navigate a whole new level of effed up economics. Okay, so I'm going to agree with them on that. There definitely is a whole new level. I think it's more difficult now. I really do. I think it's more difficult to get ahead right now.
Well, I'd love to see what where are those kids voting? Were they voting for government to spend a bunch of money for them? Because a lot of them are very entitled, and they're like, hey,
They want
everyone else.
They want the freemium.
And that's what's got us in this position is people just spending money or printing money.
Yeah, it doesn't say
All right, so-
fiat currency being created.
Horror
inflating.
story for sure, because they just can't crack into the housing market like they'd like to. I will say that the comments were overwhelmingly, and this was on X. I saw this on X, even though it's a Reddit post. The comments were overwhelmingly in favor of, the parents should help them out right now. Like, what's the point of getting an inheritance when you're 50 or 60?
Yeah.
Like, when you can really use it is when you're in your 30s, when you're
Yeah.
starting your family, when you're really struggling. The stress that adds to your marriage and then to your family relationships, it's tough.
100%, but we don't know the whole story there.
No, we don't.
They're just, I guess the one thing is if they were true, why did they ask the parents? But they just went to X to air the dirty laundry. I mean, why didn't they ask the parents and say, hey,
Seek
hey,
first
you got,
to understand.
You got $10
Shocker.
million.
Why would you do
Hey,
that, Jay?
I would
Give me
like
a little.
to. I would like to.
Because then they don't get to vent
buy
and
this
be-
house
and-
over
and
here.
have
Can
a
you
viral
give me a
post.
percentage of my inheritance now so I can buy this house? Like, did they even ask? It doesn't seem like they asked. Like they just went to X to complain about it. I mean, they didn't say, hey, I saw this, and then I asked them, like, hey, do you think I could borrow like a couple $100,000 to put on my
down
inheritance
payment?
to put a down payment on a house? If that was the case, then I mean, how do you know? I mean, how do you know they wouldn't say, sure?
Yeah, well,
I
there's
can do
just
that.
a ton of information here that we don't have.
Yeah.
But I think in general, it's definitely an interesting topic. And we do know that, I mean, anytime we talk about affordability and how tough it is to crack into the housing market, we get so much feedback and so many comments, and so many people think that the system is just really messed up right now. So this is indicative of that sentiment for sure.
There's
Okay.
a lot of wealth coming into the millennials, right? Are going to be in the next 10 years.
Oh gosh, yes.
I mean, that
So
money's
what-
going to go somewhere.
Who
Yeah,
else
yeah.
has
Well,
a-
boomer stuff that they're dying, being passed. Start passing down and rolling down. That money's going to start circulating at some point.
Yep.
So,
All right, well,
or the state's going to get it.
You got a real estate horror story for us, Elliot.
Yeah, I actually have several. I was trying to think of ones from as an agent, as an owner, as all kinds of certain things. I think ones that's fun. Well, looking back on it, it's fun. Certainly not fun in the moment. I have two quick ones that I could share. Number one, opening up properties that are vacant, like an open door one I can think of. For example, you turn the corner, the house is fine, and you can totally tell that you busted somebody that's squatting in the property, right? And you don't know if they're there, their stuff is there, you can smell, right? Like meaning that they've been there recently. So it's like, are you going to turn around the corner and like you want to jam out of the house, but at the same time you're like, hello, hello, hello. So that's always kind of like a freaky one, and it's like, is there a ghost in there?
It's creepy. Yeah, I do know that feeling.
Yep. And then there's another one that you were talking about, Jay, that your biker story and show prep that kind of reminded me. It was a house Keith and I flipped years ago. I vividly remember this one. We did okay on it, but it certainly fought. There was a a biker fellow across the street who would always roll in, and like I think it was his girlfriend. And he comes over and like he would like basically just start bouncing through, and he would like talk about like then his buddies would like roll over, and they'd always pop over like when we were doing like construction, and like this was like early days, so it was like very hands-on, like a lot of stuff, right? Like meaning flips, you know, swinging the hammer ourselves on some things. And so like talk about like, and they were like true bikers, right? Like not like just like somebody on a Harley. Like the way they talked, the way they were nothing honestly but polite and whatever else. But talk about like watch your P's and Q's. They would go through the entire property. They would they would be there for like an hour or two at times.
Oh, yeah, one
just
of those,
making you completely uncomfortable.
That's so awkward.
And you're like, I gotta get this done.
Yeah, like and it's like you can't be like, bro, get out. I gotta work. Because then, you know.
You don't want to
So
start
that's why you got
something.
those.
No.
That's why you got ear pods now. The little AirPods. Like if you put those in your ears and you just like ignore people, you know, it's like walk around, they look at you, you're just like. Oh.
Well, and like I could hear him roll up. So like,
that what you
after
do?
like after a time or
Hey,
two that they would
it
come
works.
up, like I got to the point to like where, and it was like I remember it wasn't always the dead of the summer for this project. I'd hear him coming, and I'd go like freaking close the door and try to like make it so they wouldn't like see that we were there.
You're like running from them.
Hell yeah.
And like you are a tall guy.
Yeah.
For you to feel like I'm sensing mildly intimidated.
Well, there was multiple of them, and they were
You're
just
like, no, I would not say that.
Yeah, well, I absolutely was uncomfortable. Like it was just a point like where like, and they would say like very off-color shit. Like they would let you know that they thought that they were badasses and stuff like that. Just the way that they spoke and handled things.
All right, so definitely not fun to be doing.
No, that was definitely. I mean, here it is. Like you said that, and it jogged my memory that quick. So.
Oh yeah. So you want me to do mine? Okay, so Kayla and I are about ready to go to Hawaii, and we had met our neighbor. Was it like a couple months before? And they're like, "Yeah, we want to sell our house. You guys are in real estate, so we're moving back to North Carolina, or can't remember, North Dakota, I think it was." And we're like, "Yeah, that's great. We can sell your house." Blah blah blah. We picked out a day that we're gonna put it on the market. We got all the pictures done, just as normal. We had a date that we were gonna put it on the market, and it was the day that we were gonna leave to go out of town. And so, I think my brother-in-law was coming over for some reason, and so we took off to the airport, and I get this call basically saying like, "There's water coming out of the garage." I'm like, "What do you mean there's water coming out of the garage?" I'm like, "Well, can you look around? Go, here's the lockbox code. We went, and this house is gonna go live like in a couple hours, brand new, and it'd been all remodeled and stuff." And he looked back in the backyard, and it was just completely flooded. There was like 6 inches of water.
Oh.
And it wasn't our fault. It was a toilet valve it basically exploded and flooded the whole house. So. That's what's going on.
Definitely a
And
bummer.
we're like about ready to get on a plane and like trying to call the guy and say, "You better call your insurance." And it was just.
I forgot that.
sucked.
I forgot that extenuating
That we were going
circumstances.
out of- that we were
yeah,
out
I
of town,
forgot
yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
it did suck. It was a beautiful home, and it took a few months to get it all put back together.
Yeah, it took several months to put it back together, and man, yeah. It was a
Isn't
bummer.
that the weirdest thing though about with floods in houses? And I don't even like to talk about floods in houses because I feel like it's a bad omen.
I know. We better knock on
I know.
wood, man.
But it does seem like it's very random, and it can just
is.
happen at any time, and you're just like, what?
Yeah, because I was freaking out. I'm like, did I do something
we
wrong?
thought
Did
we thought it was
did
the photographer.
Did
like
the photographer do this?
all the things.
But they found it, and like you could see where the water was spraying from the valve
Yep.
right into the drywall, and it's like making a big hole. So it was like, yeah, that's
yeah, the water
just-
actually like bored a hole into the drywall
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
spraying it. It was
And it was obviously going for I don't know how many hours through the night, because it was the day before we had just walked
these
through
people
it.
were
I wonder-
so pristine too. They were
Yeah.
like perfect. This house looked perfect.
Yeah, and they had just left too. They moved back, and they got it all ready, and then left.
There's nothing worse than that too, is then it freezes the project. You're stuck holding it.
I think it too is the agent. You just like, even though it's not your fault, you
feels
just
like
you
your
just
fault.
feel like it's your fault. Like you feel like you just totally screwed up and you're like, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
It sucks.
And the call, that sucks to have to tell somebody that. You're like, it's completely flooded.
Making hard phone calls.
Yes.
Yes. It's like, the buyer just fell out of escrow and I know that you just packed up your U-Haul. Like that's always a.
Or how about the opposite? Like they've already packed up out of their house, and for whatever reason, the deal didn't record that day, and they're waiting to get into the property, and sorry,
can't.
you need to go to the local motel because it's Friday, and it's not going to record now until Monday. So now you don't have to worry about one night; you got to worry about multiple nights.
All right.
All right, what's yours, Kayla?
Okay, so we took a listing, and this was back in REO days. So it was a bank-owned property, and we show up to the property. And one of the things you had to do with bank-owned listings is you had to get access. And so it was vacant. We could tell it was vacant. And so Jason and I are like cruising around this house, and it was like no HOA, and there was just like a ton of crap in the backyard. And I see a doggy door, and so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go through the doggy door. So I go through the doggy door, and I pop up inside the house, and it's just like cluttered with just crap, you know, stuff that is just, it's been there forever, and nobody's been moving any of this stuff. Turns out it was probably likely a meth house. The owner, we were told by the neighbors, was running like a chop shop, and so he would steal things and chop it up and resell parts.
Boy.
And I look in the, like, there was like the entryway and like a big living room, and there's this huge cutout of carpet because the owner of the home was shot and killed inside his house. We learned that he stole a bike from a guy in a biker gang, and the guy retaliated.
The Hells Angels.
I mean, that's what the article said. We Googled it. Neighbors filled us in, all the things. And you do not have to disclose in the state of Arizona if the home was a homicide, if something like that happened. A felony or a homicide, you don't have to disclose it. You don't have to disclose if someone passed away in the home. And so it was not something that we had to disclose. But I will say that every single person that showed that house, the neighbors ran out and shared with them
told them
all of the details.
You don't want this house.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember seeing the bullet holes too when we went.
Yeah, in the door
once we
casing.
found out, we went back to it, and I was like, "Were there bullet holes?" And then we saw like bullet holes, like actually holes through the door casing and stuff. And you're like, "Wow,
super
Just,
creepy."
like blasting. Yeah, I guess that is pretty scary. Like knowing that that's somebody's exit point.
Yeah, it felt weird.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
But then we remodeled it too. We put like new carpet and stuff.
Yeah, we did the lipstick remodel,
Yeah, that was crazy.
and it sold.
Yep, it did.
Great neighborhood, no HOA, big lot.
Some motorcycle parts in the garage.
had great motorcycle parking.
It did. I remember seeing a lot of different like mechanical parts all over the place in the garage. I remember because they, these REOs, they just leave
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah, everything's left. So crazy.
It is wild, right? The amount of like personal stuff that people leave behind in like loss of asset.
Is it though? Like, I mean, there's just so much crap that you don't even know you.
I mean,
have.
some of it absolutely has value.
Yeah, intrinsic for sure, but value, I'm not sure. Like,
There's been a few times that I've. Yeah, there's been a few times that we use that as little. Yeah, absolutely.
I just remember it was like at the time, I think it was if anything was over $300 in personal property, you had to do a personal property eviction.
You remember the one in Gold Canyon? It was a super nice house, and it was completely furnished, and they left all the furniture. I mean, it was like nice furniture too.
They came back for it though.
I think they did, but it was like weeks. We had to do the
personal property eviction.
Yeah.
So normally I'd size it up and I'd be like, yeah, no, that's not $300.
Yeah, nah.
No, I'm kidding.
I'd give you like a penny for that.
No, I'd always worry that there would be like some family heirloom Bible that we would trash out, and then somebody would come back to us and be like, that was, irreplaceable, invaluable. But so there are our horror stories for the day. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you have a horror story to share, drop it in the comments and we may feature it on next week's episode.